Hello and welcome to my new channel called Rockman Tech. My name is Dan and the videos on this channel are going to be on the Tom Scholl's Rockman modules. This video specifically is going to go over the Rockman Midi Octopus. I've had some requests from YouTubers to make a video on this module specifically. It's one of the most important modules to have in a Rockman rack, besides the Rockman sustainer. That's because the Rockman Midi Octopus is known as the brain of the Rockman rack, of any Rockman rack. And the sustainer is known as the heart. The sustainer is where you get the Boston sound from. That's your main sound. You get the distortion sound and the clean sound. The octopus, the Midi Octopus, controls all the effects in a rack. So every module that you see here, and including the Digitech EQ down there, is cabled to or hooked up to the Midi Octopus, with the exception of the Smart Gate. The Smart Gate really doesn't have any bypass jack on the back. It's either you're using the Smart Gate or you're not. So I've had some people say that the Midi Octopus just looks very intimidating and that it's just very confusing to use or to figure out, and it's really not, and that's why I'm making this video, because I want to make it so that people will start using the Midi Octopus in their racks. And I think that's what Tom Scholl was going for. He was trying to make an effects controller as simple and as efficient as he could, and I think that's what he did. It's a really great effect control module. Now with the Rockman Midi Octopus, excuse me, it's ideal to have a Rockman MIDI pedal. Those two go hand in hand. I mean, the MIDI pedal controls the brain, so it's kind of like a two-part effect control. And it's ground control. Ground control always helps when you're on stage live and you don't want to go to the Midi Octopus and physically push buttons. It just makes it a lot easier. So I'm kind of showing you my ground control here. So I've got the MIDI pedal, and then I've got an MXR carbon copy analog delay pedal, and that's all linked through the linkage in the chain of the rack. But I think what I'm going to do first is, I think to make it as simple as I can, we're going to start in the back of the Midi Octopus. We're going to hook everything up first, and then we'll come to the front here, and then start pushing buttons to program all the effects. So let's start in the back and let's have some fun. So this is the back of my rack. Right now there's nothing hooked up to the Midi Octopus, and what I've done is I've removed some of the cables in the other modules so we can see a little bit more of what's going on. Now I want to explain that each module has its own series of foot switch jacks that allow you to control them in their own specific way. Now, how do we know where these jacks are? The jacks are identified by the word foot switches. Whenever you see the word foot switches above some of the jacks on the modules, those are the jacks that can be hooked up to the Midi Octopus. So for instance, let's take the sustainer. We'll look at this first, and we'll go from there. But so you can see it says foot switches here. Okay, foot switches above these three jacks. So just these three jacks here on the sustainer, these three jacks control different features of the sustainer. Okay, so we're not worried about these four jacks here: the output, the send, the all return, and the dispatch return. Those don't matter. If we're just working with the Midi Octopus, we're just looking at these three jacks, because it says foot switches, which means, okay, it can be controlled by the Midi Octopus. Now, this jack here says bypass, which means this effect can be turned on or off. The volume jack here is for kind of a like a lead boost sound. So if you're playing, if your solo comes up, then you can make the sound louder. And then the channel, this is a very important jack. The channel jack allows you to change the channel on the sustainer from either distortion or clean. All right. Now, I mean, it's really that simple. You just look for the foot switch word, and you look at the jacks, and it gives you different options of how you want to control that module. So like here on this, on the EQ. Now, we're not worried about the input and output. We're just worried about this one jack here. It says foot switch bypass. Again, we're looking for that word, foot switch, which means it can be hooked up to the MIDI Octopus. So it says this jack is just for the bypass. So basically you can just turn the EQ on or off. Okay, the same principle goes for the other modules as well. So if we look at the stereo chorus and the distortion generator, they both have their own series of foot switch jacks. This is the stereo chorus up here. Now you can't really see the word foot switches on this module just because the Rockman tray kind of gets in the way, but it's there. It does say foot switches at the top of these four jacks here. So we're not worried about these two over here. This is just for input and output. Or I'm sorry, just output. Here's bypass again. Here's the bypass jack, which means that this effect can be turned on or off. There's alternate mix, there's long chorus, and then sweep stop. It just gives you, those jacks just kind of give you a different chorus sound. And it's something that you'll have to kind of experiment with, just whatever sounds best to you. And so now the distortion generator down here just has two. Again, you can't really see the word foot switches because of the Rockman tray, but it's there. So just these two right here. It says bypass and lead boost. So bypass, again, this effect can be turned on or off. And the lead boost, this jack is very similar to the volume jack on the sustainer, where it just adds, the sound will get louder if you want it to, like for leads or something. Alright, so let's start hooking up some of the modules to the MIDI Octopus. Now this is the great thing about the foot switch jacks on the Rockman modules, is that you can pick and choose which jacks you want to use to control the modules. I think one very important jack that I use on just about every module is the bypass jacks. Again, the bypass jacks just allow a module to be turned on or off, which is something that's important because I have a sustainer. I have a sustainer as well as a distortion generator, which means that if I'm using the distortion generator, if I'm using the sustainer over here, that means I got to turn off the distortion generator, and vice versa. If I'm using the distortion generator, that means I want to turn the sustainer off, and that's all done by accessing or using the bypass jacks. Okay, so we'll just take it module by module. I'm going to make it as simple as I can. So we'll start with the sustainer. Again, we have just those three jacks on the sustainer that can be controlled. We have bypass, volume, and channel. Now I'm going to tell you right off the bat, I'm just going to use the bypass jack and the channel. I don't really use the volume. I really don't have any need for like a lead boost sound. So we'll go, you got to take your cable, whatever it is. So from the channel jack to letter A. Now you can choose whatever jack you want on the MIDI Octopus. I just like to go in sequence, so I'll go from A to H. It's just less confusing. Okay. Now we'll go the bypass on the sustainer to letter B. So that's one way. This will turn the sustainer on or off. Okay. Again, the channel will change the sustainer to either the distortion channel or the clean channel. So that's it. That's the sustainer. That's all set up to be controlled. Let's let's set up the EQ now. So there's only one foot switch control on the EQ, and that's the foot switch bypass, which means it can be turned on or off. And just the way I have it all hooked up, this will go into F. Now I'm going to hook up the stereo chorus to the Midi Octopus and the distortion generator to the Midi Octopus. Alright, so I'm going to go from the bypass jack on the stereo chorus, and that's going to go into C on the Midi Octopus. And that's because I want to be able to turn the stereo chorus on or off. Now from the long chorus jack, I'm going to put that into letter D. And I choose that jack just because I like the sound of the long chorus. I'm not going to use the alternate mix or the sweep stop, just based on, it's just preference. So that's it for the stereo chorus, just the bypass, turn it on or off, and the long chorus, which just gives you a different kind of chorus sound. Now for the distortion generator, this is pretty simple too. I'm just going to put it into the bypass jack on the distortion generator, and that's going to go into letter E on the Midi Octopus. So I want to be able to turn that distortion generator on and off. I'm not going to use the lead boost jack on the distortion generator. Again, it's just based on preference. I don't have really a need for making the sound louder for any reason. Alright, now there's two things I just want to explain before we go to the front of the Midi Octopus and start programming the modules in. The Digitech EQ here at the bottom is controlled through the Midi Octopus. All you have to do is just plug a MIDI cable from the through jack, or the through MIDI jack on the Midi Octopus to the Digitech EQ or whatever effect you're using. So that'll go in there. There, just like that. Very simple. The other thing I wanted to point out is I said at the beginning of the video that every module is plugged into the MIDI Octopus except for the Smart Gate. And there's no foot switch jack on the Smart Gate. That's just because there's really no reason to turn off the Smart Gate. I mean, you're going to want to keep that on because it's the only source of keeping all the gear basically quiet. Alright, so this is now the front again of the Rockman rack, and we can start programming the modules through the Midi Octopus since they're all hooked up now. But before we do that, we have to make sure that the Midi Octopus is on a channel that's that we can sync up to the Digitech EQ. So you have to hold down this button on the Midi Octopus. It's labeled as MIDI CH, MIDI channel. So hold that down, and you can choose either channel 00 or channel 1. I'll choose channel 1, that's fine. And then so I have to go down here to the Digitech EQ, and then from there I can select the MIDI channel that I'm using. So I'll set that to 1. And then once that resets, then okay, there we go. So now we're both synced to channel number 41. So that means if I start clicking on the MIDI pedal, the numbers will be the same on whatever number I choose. So if I choose 42 on the MIDI pedal, the numbers should all be the same from the Midi Octopus to the Digitech to the MIDI pedal. It says 42. Alright? So now let's take this module by module. So we want to program the modules. We want to set a combination of modules that we like. So let's say we want to use the sustainer, and we want to choose the we'll set a clean setting for the sustainer. All right. So we got to figure out of these buttons here, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. which button controls the channel? Well, if we remember from the back, when we were hooking up the modules, the channel jack on the sustainer was hooked up to letter A, okay? So that means if we click letter A, there, then it switches the channel. I don't know if you can see that here. I'll toggle it back and forth. So you can see it went to from the distortion channel to clean, distortion to clean, alright? So if we want to set it to clean, then alright, we got to keep it on there, alright? So letter A will be lit up. So now we're on the clean setting. Now, let's see. Let's go to, let's make sure we know what the bypass is. How are we going to bypass the sustainer if we need to? Well, if you remember, the bypass jack was hooked up to letter B. So that means letter B should be our bypass for the sustainer. Yes, it worked. So each module on the front is labeled, has a bypass label on it, and you always know that the module is in bypass if this LED is lit up red. All right, so we know how to put the sustainer in bypass, but I want to take it out of bypass. Because we're using the sustainer right now, so we want to make sure it's on. So right now it's on. If we wanted it off, just click the B, click letter B, and it's off. On, off, on, off. Okay. Now, now with the stereo chorus, let's make sure we know how to bypass the stereo chorus. Alright, so right now it's not lit up, which means the stereo chorus is on. And the bypass on the stereo chorus is hooked up to letter C. Okay? So now if we click letter C, it bypasses or turns off the stereo chorus. Okay, you see this light? Alright. Now with the clean setting, I like to put on chorus. I like having a chorus on the clean setting. It just makes it sound fuller and a little bit more lush. So we will keep the stereo chorus on. And it will take the sustainer off of bypass. Alright, so now that we know how to turn on and off the stereo chorus, the other jack in the stereo chorus was the long chorus. And if we remember from the back, we hooked up the long chorus jack to letter D. So if we click this, if we click letter D, you can see here on the stereo chorus that the long chorus is engaged now. Okay? And if we click it again, it's off. Alright? So I want to keep it on. So we'll keep the long chorus on. I just like the sound of it a little bit better. So those are the only two jacks that we hooked up. So the stereo chorus is done. We're done with the sustainer and the stereo chorus. We kind of like, that setup. We like the clean with the chorus, so we'll keep that how it is. Now, the distortion generator, the foot switch bypass, or the bypass jack on the back of this distortion generator was hooked up to letter E on the Midi Octopus. So now, since we're using the sustainer, that means we want the distortion generator to be turned off. So if we click letter E, it just bypassed the distortion, which means it just turned it off, which is what we want. Because we don't want to hear the distortion generator right now, we just want to hear the sustainer. So again, I'll toggle this back and forth so you can see this LED, this bypass LED, to letting you know that it's either on or off. And again, when it's lit up red, when this LED is red, that means it's off. And when it's not lit up, that means that the effect is on. But we want to keep it off, so we'll keep that bypassed right there. Alright? And finally, now we have the EQ. Now, I do like to have the EQ on for my clean setting. Again, it's just based on preference. I think it just sounds better. So we hooked up the foot switch bypass on the EQ to letter F on the Midi Octopus. So if we click letter F, it'll bypass the EQ. Alright? So I'll toggle that back and forth. So letter F is the bypass for the EQ. But again, I want to keep the EQ on, so I do not want to bypass the EQ. So, and again, the Smart Gate doesn't have any foot switch, so we don't have to worry about that. Okay, so that's it. We like this combination. We like how all the modules are set up right now. So because of that, what we need to do is save all the settings now. We need to save all the settings for this channel. So what we're going to do is go up to this button here, this red button. It says record. We're going to hold this down and you're going to see this light blink. Okay, it just saved it. That means now I switched to a different channel, which means I switched off of 42. But if I switch back to channel 42, all our preferences were just saved. Alright, so we've got the clean, the sustainer on with the clean, distortion generator is off, the stereo chorus is on with the long chorus, and the EQ is on. Alright, that's what we just set up. It just saved it. Now you can go down here. I realize not everybody will have, a Digitech EQ or an additional EQ. They might have another instrument, Rockman EQ, but since I do have this one, I could set this EQ, I could set it up and store it so that now that I saved this setting on the EQ, whenever I come back to it, it'll remember what this setting is. It's nice to have a programmable EQ with a Rockman setup, because with this EQ, once you set it, you can't change it. It just remains the same. But with a programmable EQ, the setting changes for each channel you select if you want, and it's nice to have. Alright, so let's try another combination of programming effects. Now we're done with 42, so let's start another channel by going on 43 here. And let's say we want this channel to be a distortion channel. I want to use the sustainer, the distortion on the sustainer for the main sound. Okay, so if the channel on the sustainer is hooked up to letter A on the Midi Octopus, then we know that controls the channel. So what we want to do is keep it on the distortion, which is this green LED right here. So that's all set up. The sustainer is now in the distortion channel. So now that the sustainer is on, we want to turn off the distortion generator. So the bypass on the distortion generator is set up to letter E. Alright, so we want to click letter E because that will bypass or turn off the distortion generator. Let's see. I want to turn the chorus off. I don't want to have the chorus on this distortion channel. So we're going to bypass the stereo chorus, and that jack was set up to letter C on the Midi Octopus. So if we click letter C, then this bypass LED comes on, and so we know that this effect is off, which is what we want. EQ I want to keep on. It just gives it a better sound, obviously. So I want to keep that on. So we don't want to click letter F, because letter F would bypass the EQ. So we're going to keep that off. So the EQ is on. Then we can go down to the Digitech EQ if you have one. You can go to, you can program it however you want, and then press store to save it. And then now that we like this combination, we got to save this combination. So we got to go up here again to our record button, hold it down, and you'll see this number blink. Okay, so now channel 43 is saved. So here's channel 42, here's our preferences, the clean with the chorus on and EQ on and distortion generator off. And then we go to channel 43. Now it's distortion with EQ, no chorus, no distortion generator. This Digitech EQ is on. And there's only 2 LEDs lit up on the Midi Octopus. Alright, so pretty simple. We can try just one more combination. Alright, so let's try another program combination. Let's go to channel 44, and we'll make channel 44 another distortion channel. But this time let's use the distortion generator. So what we're going to want to do is turn off the sustainer. So we will press the letter B, and that turned off, or it bypassed the sustainer. So now we're just using the distortion generator. I want to add chorus to the distortion generator. So the stereo chorus is on right now because there is no red LED. So we know that that's on, so that's good. And we also want to have the EQ on as well, which it is because there's no red LED lit up. Now going down to this Digitech EQ, I could, again, change some of the settings however I wanted. This is just very minor changes, just some random. So I'll press store. Alright, so channel 44 is set. The distortion generator with the stereo chorus, with this EQ, and lastly, if we like this combination, we got to save it. So we'll press this red button again, and channel 44 is all set up with our saved combinations. So we just set up channel 42, 43, and 44. That's all saved in the Midi Octopus. 42 was our clean channel with chorus and EQ. 43 was our distortion channel with the sustainer with EQ. And then 44 was our other distortion channel using the distortion generator, chorus, and EQ. And just one last thing regarding this Digitech EQ. This EQ always remains on. There's no bypass. There's no foot switches at all for this EQ. To actually bypass it, we have to actually click a button on here to bypass it. It says BY, and then there's nothing lit up right here. Alright, well, I really do appreciate you all watching my videos and commenting on them. I'm going to leave some links in the description below for some really helpful Rockman sites, one of them being a link that will provide the user manual for the Midi Octopus. Really helpful manual. If you have any further questions about the Midi Octopus, you can check out the manual and it should answer a lot of the questions. And then the other link is to a website called rockman.fr. It gives info on all the Rockman modules and then some. So check it out. It's really helpful. I hope you enjoyed the video, and we'll see you next time.